Hello and welcome to Rauta's Challenging the Classics. Now usually when I go for the classic albums or old albums referred to as classics, it's because I just feel like there's a time and place to listen to some older release. This time there is twice that amount of reasons. First of all, Borknagar's debut album turns 25 years, or actually turned. And secondly, there's a new version out of it. And yes, this is a very legit version. Now, why I especially mention that it is because this is a booklet which specifically mentions that there has been requests for these kind of reissues in the past many times from various sources, and since 2000 or so there really hasn't been one, and now we have this definitive edition which celebrates the 25th anniversary of the band's debut album. So let's welcome Norwegian black metal band Borknagar with its debut album called Borknagar. The first thing here worth mentioning is that this album cover is basically the same but new colors, so it's more like finished, refined version, and this one has this kind of a glossy logo which you can see, kind of a silvery one. But more importantly, it has this remastered version of the album, 10 tracks, some less than 50 minutes. I don't remember the exact amount of minutes there, but something 45, 49 minutes or so. And then some 60 minutes of bonus material here. Now you can pretty much see they are rehearsal tracks, alternate mix, and, well, basically demo versions of the one. Now, if you have the previous album, that is the original print of the CD, I don't know if there is so much reason to update it, because obviously original prints tend to have their values. But if you're a big fan, you might consider either upgrading to this one or getting both versions. One for the sentimental and, well, value reasons, first edition and all that stuff. And this one because, well, it includes a bonus material. Well, first of all, the remastered version, which sounds good, by the way. Then the bonus disc, then the booklet, which I will show you, and some beautiful photography right here. And here it says, in all of nature since 1996. Now, of course, the band's story goes beyond that, but this debut album is from 1996. And in case you already paid attention to the lineup there, this one is something that probably already in time I really can't remember, even though the first time I listened to it was late 90s, probably 1997, 1998, 1999, roughly those years anyway. And I remember liking it, yeah, but really didn't know that much what kind of a lineup, classic lineup this would be. And of course nowadays it's a whole different band, but there it is. Having lyrics which are not that readable, given that they are handwritten and, well, in Norwegian, so really can't comment the lyrical content. But what is interesting is this story that begins here, basically on page 2, and that goes through the main man's phases throughout the years. This is basically his 25th anniversary text here, mentioning how this album got born, how the original lineup, which I will show you here, how it was, and how things came to be. And nowadays Borknagar is quite a big band, but not so much black metal band anymore as it was when this album came about. And here it is, the lineup. Guitars, Øystein G. Brun, the man of the band, the mastermind, Primus Motor. And also there is Garm from Ulver on vocals, Infernus and Grim from Gorgoroth. Grim, now rest in peace. He died some 20 years ago already. But yeah, some classic people. And then Ivar Björnsson of Enslaved fame. So if you really think about it, this is a kind of a supergroup lineup. But maybe back in 1996, things were not that obvious. I mean, already all these members had their past and had their merits. I mean, for example, Mr. Øystein here already had his band Molested before Borknagar, so he had his death metal past, like so many other Norwegian black metal artists, before jumping to black metal bandwagon. But that's a different story, and we are not here to recap the history so much, but just give you a little bit of a basic information regarding the album and regarding the band. Like I said, since this album, Borknagar has been a very, very different band. It was basically already after this album, when the lineup changes started to happen, and people went about their different courses, and the band also changed its path. But this is an album which I would definitely consider black metal album from Norway, and as such I would say black metal classic, originally from 1996. Now here on my Metal Archive site page, which you can probably see here, I hope you can, you will see the track list. Quite a few instrumentals, and 44 minutes in total. Didn't recall that wrong, and then some 60 minutes of bonus tracks. But like I said, these are alternate mixes and demo versions, so they're not so much a big deal unless you're a big hardcore fan of the band, but definitely quite nice to listen to them, and especially when you compare the evolution of the songs and songwriting and honing and polishing the whole deal before going to the final product. But already these studio sessions and all that stuff, they already pointed out that these guys knew what they were doing and that the songwriting was already solid by the time. So this is like only and only more polished and honed version of those songs already written before 1996. Now, as many people know, Norwegian black metal basically got started already in the 80s, but it was the first years of 1990s when things really got rushed. I mean, bands like Mayhem and Dogthrone, Emperor, so forth, were storming the whole scene with their really classic and high-class black metal albums. So to that respect, Borknagar came a little bit late to the party, having their debut album as late as 1996. But that is not to say that while they missed maybe the first golden years, so to speak, that they didn't do classic album. In fact, what makes this album definitely worth mentioning and quite enjoyable is the fact that it's an album that has a little bit more folkier tunes. It's a little bit like a step sideways from the kind of a classic Norwegian black metal, if there is such in the first place. I mean, even if you compare it to bands like Burzum or Satyricon or even Enslaved, which were already more on the Viking side and folkier side rather than the more typical blackness and darkness and satanic bands, especially bands like Mayhem and Dogthrone and the like, also Roar and Borknagar had their own ways, partially because of these instrumental parts, but also because quite a big use of clean vocals, which Garm just perfectly executed. Now, there are obviously screamy parts, which then again complement more to the black metal side. And the riffs, they're flirting with kind of both sides. One can even say this is the bridge between black metal and Borknagar's and even Enslaved's later years, when the bands kind of started going away from Norwegian black metal sound and style. So it's definitely a kind of unique breed, but at the same time you can pretty much hear and sense the DNA which connects these two different worlds together. I mean, obviously for Enslaved, you can pretty much sense the path where they started and where they are now, as much as with Borknagar. But instead of like where Borknagar started, it's not as clearly tied to black metal than, say, Enslaved first album. But there are lots of similarities, so definitely Borknagar goes, in my opinion, to the black metal department, but that is, of course, debatable. Overall, this reissue version has great sound in terms of being debut album. I mean, obviously, you have to understand that back in 1996, bands didn't have this big a budget or engineering and all that stuff. So given that this is a debut album, it's really, really nicely done. There's a lot of skill, lots of vision, and lots of its own style in the music. Now, this is definitely not for everybody. That must be kind of said, because even though I can totally like this album and consider it a good one, there is still something that I feel like the band later on fixed. But even though I'm saying that, I guess I would say this is my favorite Borknagar album. But that is not because the band didn't evolve or because there were lineup changes. It's mostly because this is closer to my taste for music, extreme metal especially. So whereas this could have been a different kind of black metal band, evolving more deeper into that department. They went the very same ways as basically Enslaved and Helheim also from Norway did. So kind of abandoning that black metal thing and evolving to something different. For some people that was a blessing. For some people like me, more like a little bit of a disappointment. Why did you decided to go away from that? But anyway, this is a good album, and in case you missed back in the days, now it's your chance to check it out in a more beautiful ways. Obviously, a lot of people have been listening to this one via streaming services or their old CD or whatever. But I don't know. In case you are looking for a physical copy for your own collection, this is the kind of version I strongly recommend getting. Now, this has been released on 9th of November 2021 by Century Media Records. So get your copy from local record stores or online stores. Or in case you're still shy, from physical collection or whatever, well, go for the streams. It's available on your favorite streaming platform. I'm quite sure of that. Thanks for checking out the review. Should you have questions or comments, put them on the comments box below and I will get back to you. Meanwhile, go enjoy some Borknagar.